with Ranking Member Republican Cliff Stearns of Florida.
Representative Cliff Stearns, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on the FCC's decision today regarding net neutrality rules.
Well, I've written a letter to the chairman of the FCC and also to all the commissioners indicating that I'm not sure that there's a need for a rule as proposed by the chairman and by the FCC because there has been no market analysis to determine, first of all, is the applications that are coming through the broadband being discriminated against? He says he thinks that's true, but I don't think it's true. And in fact, if you pick up your wireless phone, you've had no trouble. I'm sure many people in this country, Americans, have had no trouble. So why would we want the chilling effect of net regulation? He calls it net neutrality. I call it net regulation, put in place for a group of people that are sending applications over the internet. And when you realize that this is going to apply to the broadband providers and not to the people who are sending the applications over the internet, you really have discrimination right in the bill. He doesn't define discrimination in the bill, but he hasn't even been fair in talking about if the rule is going to apply to one sector of the economy, why doesn't it apply to everybody? The application people as well as the broadband providers. So I've written a letter to the chairman and indicated that I think whatever he does, he should test first and do no harm.
And why do you think it doesn't apply equally?
Well, for example, some of the people that are champions of this net regulation, or as the chairman says, net neutrality, is Google, eBay, Craigslist, and other consumer groups. They want to be able to put anything and everything on the broadband. And in fact, a lot of groups that are peer-to-peer, which is downloading music, downloading DVDs, downloading all kinds of information. Obviously, you're going to need some kind of management control if one group is hogging the internet. And if you let them hog it, that is not good. But they're saying, let them hog it. Well, right now, the broadband can't handle all the peer-to-peer, can't handle all these different people. And I think what he really should do is analyze to see if there's a need for this, then put in place something that is incremental and moves towards a solution. But first of all, he's got to show it's a problem and not propose a solution without understanding what the problem is.
So early in the process, do you think there is a solution that can make all sides happy?
Well, I think sometimes negotiations are helpful and there is perhaps some consensus, but I think the Commission must apply whatever they apply with this net neutrality, I call it net regulation, must apply to the people who are providing the applications as well as the people who are offering the broadband. Why isn't it applicable to everybody?
Tell us a little bit then. All 5 of the commissioners decided to go ahead with this notice of proposed rulemaking, even though there were some reservations from the Republican members. Did you have a chance to talk with them about their reservations at all?
Well, we've had a hearing, and we had all 5 commissioners up, so we talked to them, we had their opinion. I think almost all the commissioners, including the chairman, has been in my office. I'm the ranking Republican, the lead Republican on telecommunications, technology and internet, so I've had the opportunity to talk to them. I respect their opinion. You know, a lot of people think this almost impinges upon the fairness doctrine. That is, broadband operates a broadband, and some people want to get on it and hog it for their own personal use. There's a possibility that fairness is involved here. But I think the Republican commissioners are saying, okay, the first step is the notice, and that's what this is. And we're going to get comments over a period of time. Once these comments come in, that's when the rubber's going to meet the road, and we're going to see, in fact, what kind of rule that the chairman's going to offer here, and then I think that would be the real debate. Right now, there's a period where people can offer their suggestions, and I'm hoping that the chairman will look at the letter that I sent together with 22 other Republicans who serve in the Energy and Commerce Committee, who are knowledgeable in this, asking the chairman, say, gee whiz, why don't you do a study first to see if it's needed?
Talk a little bit about what the worst case scenario. Should it go forward after the comment period, the rules as they are laid out pass? What does it mean for a network provider?
Well, it's a good question is, what is the worst case scenario? I'm not sure what it would be, but I would say to you that if you're a broadband provider and you're going to spend billions of dollars to put in fiber optics, it'll have a chilling effect on you, and you might slow down your investment. Particularly in light of this economy, the high unemployment, the recession, We don't need this to be put on the table at this point because I think it would stop investment. The other thing that would happen is that it would say, based upon the legal language, which is now there is no definition of discrimination, it'd probably end up in the courts, which would be another problem because litigation slows things down, and we're trying to get fourth-generation wireless on the phone. We're trying to get streaming of television in high definition across the fourth-generation wireless. So we have all kinds of video-on-demand requirements. But what would this do in the courts as well as slow down the investment? I'm not sure. Another long-term effect is that you're going to take the providers and the application people are going to be fighting against each other. And if it turns out that the consumer groups win, then I think there's going to be a lack of innovation that's required. Because right now the innovation's there. We can pick up our wireless and we don't have any problem. And in fact, there's been court cases which showed that providers are basically doing a good job and that people can get their applications on the internet without a problem.
You talked about the letter you wrote. Is there any legislative recourse should these rules go into effect?
That's a good question. I think to get the debate in a more concise and focused manner, I'm going to drop a bill which basically reiterates the letter that I sent to the chairman, which says basically, here's what should be done. Congress is recommending that we have a market analysis to see if there's a problem, and all the different, shall we say, requirements and milestones in that analysis, how it should be done would be part of my bill. And I think I'll get a lot of co-sponsors on. And of course, on the Senate side, Kay Bailey Hutchison, the senator from Texas, has indicated she's going to put an amendment to an appropriations bill, which would, in effect, not allow the FCC chairman to spend any money for this until he demonstrates that there's a need for this rule.
Do you think that this is a partisan issue in the sense that you would get support from both sides of the House, particularly from your colleagues?
Well, I think if you look at the record, there's about 72 Democrats have signed a letter, probably in the last week and a half, who reiterated my position, which basically be very careful, move slowly on net neutrality. It's a question of whether it's needed. So if you say most of the Republicans are against this so-called net neutrality, and you take some of those Democrats, then obviously you got a majority to put a stop to this. So I think the chairman's going to have to move very slowly here if he expects to get a consensus.
Talk a little bit about, I guess, as a first main effort from this FCC. Were you surprised that this would be the first big issue they tackled?
I was. In fact, because the chairman testified before our telecommunication subcommittee, and I touched upon net neutrality using his words and talking about the issue, he never brought it up. He didn't talk about it in his opening statement. When we had questions for him over a period of an hour and a half, he didn't mention anything. So we're all quite surprised when he suddenly, within 3 or 4 days, gave a major speech on it and made this his first priority. So in a sense, he was saying, Congress, be darned, I'm just going to run ahead and do this anyway, when I think, at the very least, since he just got appointed, he would have said, this is what I'm thinking of doing. What's your comments? But he didn't do that, and so we were quite surprised. In fact, I pressed it out that my concern was so strong that I criticized him. And to his credit, he called back and he apologized for not making it more transparent in the beginning. So, and I accepted his apology.
Could this been resolved outside of the FCC? Could the market have decided that they can impose their own kind of limits on network management?
I think so. In the United States, we like to see that the free market can decide these things, particularly when you have so much innovation in the video demand, which is going to be a major source of information that's going to be broadcast over the broadband. So I think at the very least he should have said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Bring in the groups, try and iron out a way to do this. We've done this several times on the telecommunications subcommittee. The most recently, there's been complaint about advertising. Their voices over on the advertising are too loud, and we got a consensus in the industry. So we didn't have to pass legislation that says, you know, government mandates what decibels are going to be on advertisers. So I think this can be done through the private sector, and I think I'm hoping that in the end, the comments that will come back to him will show that the best thing to do is to let the private sector do it.
So one more question. Talk a little bit about your course of action between now and the eventual vote on this.
Well, we expect to drop me to have a bill probably in the next week and a half to drop it and try and seek co-sponsors as well as Democrats. If we get a bipartisan bill, I think that would send a message. Work with the Senate, a senator from Texas, and also to try and be sure that industry comments on the proposed rule, and if necessary, try and have another hearing. The chairman is Rick Boucher from Virginia, maybe perhaps we could have a hearing and bring this in and get some more thoughts on it.
In a general sense, how do those in the subcommittee view this issue?
Well, I think it's broken down pretty much on a Republicans have pretty much questioned the need for net regulation or net neutrality, and I think there's a few Democrats who are also concerned. And I think if it was brought to daylight and we had a chance to discuss it, we might let private industry try to solve this problem in a short amount of time before the government steps in.
Representative Cliff Stearns of Florida, thanks for your time.
Thank you.